StreamYard is thinking still. If you guys see it, just give me a thumbs up. Oh, that's so funny. All right, finally for me, it came through. All right, hey, it's Brent Leary. It's Friday afternoon here in Atlanta. It's sunny but brisk, but I'll take sunny and brisk because I actually like brisk because it gives me a chance to break out another new Ram hoodie. I just love my Rams hoodies. But anyway, we're here for the small biz breakdown. You know what it is. It's Friday afternoon here. So let me bring on the crew. Right now, it's kind of a abbreviated crew, but it's a crew nonetheless. Hello, Leland.
Hey, glad to be on. Glad to be here. Glad to be awake.
Glad to be awake. All right, we're cooking with gas here, folks, and we'll continue that cooking as we go right to Cleveland and Ivana Taylor. Ivana.
Rock City says hello.
Rock City
everyone
says hello. I like that. Have you ever been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I have been multiple times, and folks need to know that I am not what you would call a music aficionado. I enjoy music, but it's not something, you know what I mean? Like some people are really, really intense. But it doesn't matter where your level of intensity is with music. There's something for everybody. It's wonderful, wonderful. And you could spend the day and it's right on the lake. Highly, highly encourage it. And do you want to know something interesting? I was, they have the rock and roll people's, what are those called? The costumes and things they wear on stage. Those are some little tiny people. Like we all know Prince is small, but Bon Jovi's a little person. There's like most of these rock stars are little tiny people. So that's my trivia for the day.
I think Brent froze.
Brent is frozen.
I know.
Oh my gosh, I hope he comes back. Are you a music fan, Leland?
I'm okay with music. It's not like I go after music and try to, it's like I put on whatever playlist and hit shuffle.
I hear you. I hear you. I just recently, yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you what else is really cool at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you might appreciate this as a content creator, for example. It used to be a much bigger component of the exhibits, but my favorite exhibit that they have is when they show the actual artifacts of where they wrote the songs. So sometimes it's a notebook, sometimes it's a napkin. Brent, are you back?
I think I'm back. It looked like a little bit of a Wi-Fi blip there, but I think I'm back.
Yeah. So we were just talking about, rock and roll stars, just like you.
All righty then. I'm sorry I missed that part of the show, but okay. Oh wow. You know what? The StreamYard just really messed me up because it actually, for some reason, I had posted my slides and when I got back in, it's like, oh, they're not here anymore. So let me just bring them back in.
Bring them on back.
I'm bringing it back. All right. So I noticed some interesting things on Small Biz Trends this week. One of the things I noticed was this thing about Uber releasing. I guess they did some kind of. Oh, look, we're getting a happy Friday. Miss Sandy Lowe. Hello,
hi, Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
She's just back from her world travels. She was in Australia. Just
well, she's probably sitting there over coffee because it's 9 o'clock where she's at. So
no, she's back home now, but she was there that's like the shortest trip to Australia. Like you go halfway around the world and then 3 days later you're back. That's rough.
That is rough.
But maybe since she probably I'm guessing had an Uber at some point in time during her travels. We can tie this in. So this is ripped right from the headlines from Small Biz Trends. Uber releases 2024 Lost and Found Index, highlighting most forgotten items and surprising trends. So I don't know if you guys saw. Well, I know. So So Leland, I'm guessing you already know the answer, so I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask Ivana. Did you read this article?
I have not read this article, but I am astonished, and just goes to show all of our small business friends that there is data and research data everywhere.
That's right. So,
My goodness.
so since you didn't read the article, I can ask this.
You can ask because it's going to be a guess.
So they list like the top 10 items left behind or lost or whatever. But I want to ask you, they also list the top 10 cities things are left in their Uber cars for.
Okay.
What do you think is the number one city people lose or leave things in their Uber cars in?
I'm going to say New York.
New York. That would be a good guess. Sandy, if you're out there and you want to take a guess?
I have my top 3 actually.
All right, what are your top 3? Let's see.
My top 3 is New York is number 1. Actually, San Francisco is number 2, and I'm thinking like Boston.
Okay, Leland, I know you read this, right? So.
No, actually, I hadn't gotten to that one yet. Joshua made it, so
okay. So all right.
Leland, you guess.
Take a stab at it.
So I'm just gonna go with the big 3: New York, Chicago, LA.
Oh,
Nope,
Sandy's in agreement.
Sandy is also saying New York and LA, and
but wait a minute. There's the other thing too. If you think about it, what are the busiest airports? Atlanta's one of the busiest airports in the country, isn't it, Brent?
Actually, it is the busiest.
This is what I was thinking. So, maybe the ATL.
So, which one are you going with? Number 1.
I'm going with.
Are you sticking with New York for number 1?
I'm going to stick with New York.
All right.
Just because it's a busy place.
Okay. So everybody's going with
you're
New
saying
York.
Uber. Because understand, we're talking about Uber. We're not just talking about airports.
Even if you just overthink this way too much. All right. So I think you guys are all in agreement. New York was the first for all 3 of you guys, right? Okay. You would all be wrong because and I wouldn't have got this either. The number 1 is Miami.
Oh, Miami. But look, Sandy came in with Los Angeles.
And you were rationalizing Atlanta?
So I was. So yeah, it would have been number 3 if I'd have changed my answer.
San Francisco didn't even make the top 10.
No. How about that?
No, not so Miami, LA. I think I would have gone with Atlanta because my Ubers always start and end in Atlanta, going to the airport and coming back. But yeah, Austin was a good one. That's an interesting one. I'm surprised Vegas actually, but
you are? Oh, it's not on there.
No,
yeah, I'm surprised. I agree. It's not on there.
Yeah, so
I want to get to this. This is all very interesting, but the fact that they actually got trends from what's left behind in an Uber, I want to hear all about it.
All right. So, do you want to take a guess at naming something in the top 10 of the list lost items? Or I think it's more left behind items, but
I mean, like two things come to mind. Either like some type of coats, hats, a piece of clothing, or your phone. Okay. But then maybe not. How would you pay for the Uber? I don't know.
Phone's got to be number 1, and maybe something that they brought along, like a briefcase or a bag.
Yeah, like a backpack. Yeah, that's a good one, like a bag. Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the list of the top 10.
Clothing. Okay, luggage. Mm-hmm. Oh, headphones. Yeah, good one. Wallet.
Somebody leave their jewelry.
I can see things falling off. Right, you're grabbing things. It's a busy.
I've left a tablet. I've left a iPad. Excuse me.
Have you really? Oh my!
I have, which is really not a good thing to do. Anyway, so yeah, I just find it fascinating that they're putting out this stuff. Like even as saying, every company at this point can do something like this with whatever their business is. They have a way to make a data survey or something out of it at this point. Let me ask you this, Ivana. Is this something that is this just for information, or is this something Uber's using for marketing purposes?
Yeah, all of these things, right? So think about it. The obvious thing is they created some interesting and fun content. That's great fun, right? But at the same time, it's data that now, I have a manufacturing background. So the first thing I'm always thinking about is, we call it failure modes, effects analysis. What are all the things that can go wrong? And how can you innovate and create new products and services from that type of information? So in this particular case, I could imagine that they might figure out a way to, whether it's, maybe they have it already, what do I know, help you retrieve a lost item, maybe help get your item back to you. I mean, I honestly don't know, but I definitely could smell a competitive advantage in there. It is a tech company after all. So there's something there that you can get from that data that can help you innovate and create new products. And every business can do exactly the same thing.
Maybe add on something like a little service fee. The person, the driver has to wrap up all the stuff and, maybe ship it or meet you. And that adds on an extra fee. It's like, oh, item retrieval fee, it's an extra $30.
But you won't have to worry about it, which I think is really terrific. I love this idea. This is just stuff I'm thinking of, right? Like, let's say, for example, every Uber might actually have a, like Leland was saying, maybe like a bag, right? One of these like mailing bags or something, or like the ones that Amazon uses, they're all different sizes, but it could be a big one. You could put the stuff inside. Who's to say you can't just print off like a mailing address or something with a code on it, slap it on? Ooh, partnership, Uber and Amazon, right? Think about it. I mean, it just as an idea, what would happen if you and your team got together and just like really brainstorm some interesting statistics and things that you collect on a daily basis and what you could do with that? You can create great. And I think I talked about this last time. I think it was Volkswagen that did this. They actually had collected all kinds of survey data, but like really, really weird things, like what kind of ice cream do you like? What kind of exercise classes do you take? What's your favorite cheese? I mean, like, just not car information. And they use that information in their advertising. So much you could do. Great fun.
Yeah.
Great pick. Great pick, Leland.
Favorite cheese.
Think Joshua. He looked at that and he went, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This is going to be good for the show. Yeah, that is what he said. All right. How many of you have used Microsoft Notepad before? You've never used Microsoft Notepad?
I try to. I don't know, Leland. You're on a PC. I honestly, I have issues when I try to use certain Microsoft products. Teams is one in particular, or sometimes even the Office suite. I get glitches and I have issues.
Wow.
So I'm either using Google or I'm using my Zoho.
Very nice plug there. So what about
what happened?
What year Notepad came out for Microsoft?
Is it around 2010 or something like that?
Microsoft Notepad.
Oh, Notepad.
Yeah, Notepad.
Okay.
This is just...
I'm sitting here thinking of like something within the Microsoft Office suite. Okay, Notepad, I would probably say 95 or so.
95. That's not a bad guess. How about 1983?
1983.
This is before all the other stuff.
Yeah. This is before there was a Microsoft.
It's the most basic text editor there is.
Yeah.
Been out since 1983. But guess what?
Brent? What happened?
Pull this out. Microsoft Notepad launched in 1983, and now it's getting an AI revamp in 2024. Everything is getting AI-ified.
Yeah,
if that's
absolutely.
Or something like that. I just find it fascinating. So it's not only the new stuff, it's the old stuff that is getting AI defied. I don't know how to say that.
That's like saying, hey, your notebook that you write in every day, now you'll be able to do that on a computer.
They have those though. They have it's notebooks that you could write and then it'll just zip right over to your phone or your
that's right.
computer.
Yeah, they become digital.
It is a thing because it's actually, here's a little trivia. If you are writing with your hand, Okay. That's one part of your brain. If you are typing on a computer, that's a completely different part of your brain, whole different processing thinking thing.
You know what? I'm kind of glad the cold one, the bold one, John Cold Rice Lawson isn't here because he'd probably be making fun of this right now. But you know why I think this is kind of an important or at least impactful thing?
Tell us.
There's still a lot of people out there. I mean, millions of people out there using the bare bones stuff on Windows PCs. Notepad. I use the Apple version on the Mac because it's very straightforward.
It is. I use both the Apple one and I use the Zoho Notebook one for different reasons. But I still gotta say, I'm sorry. I have tried messing around with some of these AI things. I have something embarrassing to admit to you. I posted it up on LinkedIn the other day.
Hold on a second. We want to give you like a full blown close up. All right, now tell us what's embarrassing about you.
I'll tell you well, first of all, it has to do with AI and how it's gone everywhere, right? So the other day I am writing an email in my Gmail. And, you know, they have this new AI thing and it says, the little pencil comes up and capital POLISH. And my brain says Polish. I don't want it to write in Polish. Where is the language setting? How did I get this language setting completely wrong? And I go into like a little rabbit hole and I start searching Google only to realize that what they're trying to say is polish as in improve.
But you know what? I think if I had seen that, I might have
because it's the capital P. It's the capital P.
Oh, right.
Which makes sense. You would make it a capital P because then when you see all the other ones, like I don't know what other choices they have, like shorten or like whatever, expand. Well, but I was like, wow, why didn't they use the word improve? And even when I do click on that AI thing, back to the notepad thing and all the AIs and all the tools, when I click on any AI thing just to see what it does, I'm sorry, people, it's awful.
Ouch.
It is just not very good. And even Apple has a controversial ad out right now promoting its Apple Intelligence and how it's like writing emails and you don't have to do anything. You just like, and you get promoted by like playing with fidget toys or something.
Fidget toys, yeah.
All this to say, I don't have Notebook or whatever that thing is, Notepad. But just slap an AI on it, I'm not impressed. It's just not good.
Okay, so for whatever reason, when you first brought this up, I was thinking it was OneNote, Microsoft OneNote.
Yeah.
Notepad. And so I was sitting there like, oh no, I don't use OneNote. But I do use Notepad a lot. In fact, they recently changed it so that Notepad has tabs on it, which was the biggest, and I was a little frustrated with that at first, but now I'm like, I kind of like it. But now I have a collection of tabbed notepads that I don't go back to. And even if you shut down your computer, they're still there when you open up Notepad, all of the tabs. And so I have like 16 tabs on my Notepad. I have a little bit of a problem.
Like a browser now.
It's like a browser.
So can you use the AI to somehow make that more useful for you?
I doubt it. I use it as a text cleaner. So if I want to get rid of any formatting off of something that I've copied off of the internet, I'll paste it into a Notepad so it scrubs all of the formatting. And then I use it. I like to edit the hosts file within Windows, do a little bit of configuring with the basically the personal DNS of the computer. But mainly it's just like a place where I can put little things and then come back to them later.
It's like a junk drawer of notes.
It is my junk drawer of notes, but I don't think that I will ever sit there and say, yeah, let's get AI on this.
Okay. So you're not really excited about the new generative.
I am not.
All right. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just curious. I wonder if people who are oblivious to all the stuff that's going on at Gen AI, but are avid Notepad fans, because there are some people out there that use it. I wonder if that will be their entree, so to speak, into actually using, because you can get it to do to write stuff for you now. It's generative AI in a very basic app from 41 years ago. I'm just curious to see if that is something that moves people. I can obviously see it's not moving even a one iota, one bit, one step. All right, we're gonna move on from that one. All right, we're going back to some numbers here because once again, ripped from the headlines, Adobe has put out. I really like the kind of data that Adobe puts out around the shopping season because they got all these customers that are building their stores and on their e-commerce stuff, and so they got tons and tons of data. So they just recently came out with their price index, and it shows grocery prices fall for the first time since 2020. And let's see if I think, yeah, all right. So in October, 6 of their 18 categories tracked went up. That's electronics, personal care, office supplies, jewelry, non-prescription drugs, medical equipment. That's some pretty important stuff, actually. But 12 of their categories prices went down. Books, furniture, toys, home, garden, pets, products, groceries, all that kind of stuff. And I think I have one more little tidbit here. So it says it has gone down. Grocery prices fell 0.1% year over year in October 2024, marking the first annual decrease in grocery prices since 2020. On a month over month basis, grocery prices also declined by 0.1% from September 2024. Across the board, e-commerce landscape, overall online prices fallen for 26 consecutive months, showing a 2.9% year over year decrease. Is this a big deal for us small business folks that we're seeing for the first time in I don't know how long grocery prices have shown that kind of, I know it's a very small decrease, but at least it's an actual decrease and not just a slowing down of an increase.
I don't understand that when they're talking about, if you could just, I'm assuming that they're gathering this data from online sales of groceries, like e-commerce sales of groceries. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, online grocery prices.
Online, that's what I thought. Okay. I find that fascinating. Like, I don't understand that distribution channel and what, like, because you got to add shipping on there. Well, I don't know. I don't know how to think about it. Go ahead, Leland.
Well, I was going to say, I know that gas prices have gone down in recent years, and I know that that is a huge contributing factor of getting groceries and all that with distribution. And I would imagine that maybe these companies are finding better ways to actually optimize their distribution networks so that it doesn't cost as much to get products from point A to point B. And that could always help. I know that Walmart usually has big, huge distribution centers, and if they can add in a few more, it might lower the costs for them, which ultimately lowers the costs for the consumer.
I'm guessing it's a combination of a lot of that stuff, but because maybe it's efficiencies in the supply chain, lower gas prices. Because I mean, they have come down pretty considerably. Although I noticed a little bit of an uptick lately.
I don't know. I was out this morning here in Cleveland. We are at $2.89. I'm going to call it on the average. That's the one I've seen most often. So okay. I love where
it's $3.50 around here.
50. Yeah, it's closer to even. It's been anywhere from $2.79 to $2.99.
I feel like it was $2.79 like last week or so. I don't even know, but maybe I transposed the numbers or something. I don't know.
So, given all that, is that enough to make people feel
it? It's kind of like you're stopping the bleeding, but you still got to heal. and once wages go up, I guess then it will probably help out. But I still feel it. I go to the grocery store and I look at the bill and I go, oh yeah, that was $200.
Yeah, it's an ouch for sure. Didn't we have that conversation about like percentage of your income, the percentage of your income that it takes to do whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's buying gas, paying rent, your mortgage, or even some of the business services that you're getting. I think a lot of businesses, especially if you are dealing where, like a restaurant or something where you're constantly having to purchase things. I think those are the folks that are gonna feel it. And I wonder if you have some kind of economies of scale with this maybe online grocery shopping. I know I like to do some online grocery shopping, although I go and pick mine up.
Oh, so you order them online?
I order online and I will go and pick it up, and that is a decent service. And they don't charge anything for that. You get all your little discounts, all the coupons, all the everything.
I wonder I don't know if they include like when you're doing like a Uber Eats or DoorDash. That's not necessarily grocery, right? I mean,
well, you can get, what is that, Instacart? This is my question.
Yeah,
with Instacart, that's what I'm kind of curious about, because now you're adding these surcharges or whatever to that additional distribution from the grocery store to your door.
Right. By the way, Ramon says, always a great show. Okay. Where are you? Where are you?
Get in on it, Ramon.
Right. Where are you? But we appreciate that.
Yes.
All right. No, that's I think, I notice when I'm ordering stuff, I don't think I've ever ordered groceries online. I always just go to the store and get my stuff, and I don't order ahead of time. It's like the one thing I don't buy online is like groceries. I just still go to the market for that kind of stuff.
It's a great way to budget and stay on budget and keep your costs. Like let's say I keep an ongoing grocery list, and if I have a busy week, I can definitely order from the grocery store, and that keeps me from buying ancillary things that I don't. You walk past it, you're like, oh, this is great, I'm going to snap that up. I'm kind of that would be an interesting survey. How much of your shopping budget, are these like spontaneous purchases that you weren't planning on? I want to say it's like 20%.
Oh, so you're saying that it cuts down, like going to the grocery store, you're doing all sorts of impulse buying? Like,
impulse buying. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. So when you're ordering online, you don't have that. You don't do that.
No, you're getting the things that you need. And the same, although Amazon has kind of shifted that a little bit, there's the, like, for example, going to a bookstore. It's a totally different consumer experience, user experience, right? You're browsing, you're learning, you're touching. I love bookstores.
Hours in Borders.
Absolutely. As opposed to if I'm going to order something online, I know exactly what I want.
But guess
I
what?
want this book.
That's probably why Borders went out of business. I did a lot of staying in there. I didn't do as much buying as I did browsing and staying around and enjoying the ambiance and all that.
Yeah.
I would be there for hours, and I might come out with like a $5 book or something like that. But
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble is still hanging on though.
Yeah.
That is really surprising to me. How are they still around? I am really baffled by that.
The one that's closest to us has really shifted more towards the younger market, and they will carry, like, it used to be, a small amount was for the kids and stuff like that. But now I'd say probably 60 to 70% of the store is kind of more geared and targeted towards kids. They got board games. They got a massive, at least the one that's closest to me and any other one that I've been in, massive kid section. And Japanese manga has been just blowing up in those stores. And and it kind of feeds into that impulse buy. I go in, it's like, oh, that looks cool. I need to take that home.
So is that like, and Sandy says half the store is no longer books,
games? It's true.
Gifts and tame.
So it's like the new Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. I mean, are they eating and stuff now? Or
yes, they got coffee shops and
all right. Coffee for the kids? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just-
Oh, I have seen so many people give their 5-year-old a cappuccino.
Are you kidding me?
They go to Dutch Brothers. There's one person. It's like, if you don't behave, you're not going to get to go to Dutch Brothers.
Are you kidding me? Kids are getting threatened for stuff like that. To go, are you what? Wow. Well, I am old and I don't have kids.
You're old and grizzled.
I am very
Right.
grizzled, very old and very grizzled. All right, let's move on from because I don't want to feel that old or grizzled by not knowing these things anymore. All right, let's move on to the next some more data points. I love the data points. And this is more directly related to small businesses. And I think also ripped from the headlines, small business. Joshua is really picking out some good
He's
ones.
on fire.
He's on a roll. All right. So Robert Half, they do research and they say their top hiring challenges for small and mid-sized businesses heading into 2025 are these. All right.
I can't even read that.
I'm sorry. I'll read them for you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And let me know if these ring true or ring hollow to you guys, because you're all small business folks here. Meeting salary expectations. Nearly half of SMB's hiring managers cited aligning salaries with candidates' expectations as their primary hiring challenge. Meaning salary expectations, biggest challenge. Does that ring true to you guys?
What we just talk about, grocery prices and gas and the percentage of your expenses is chewing up your salary.
It sounds like the impetus is on the employers because it seems to be very hard to hire people these days.
Well, and they are competing with larger companies with larger budgets that can meet sometimes those salary expectations. I know that it's becoming kind of more of a common practice to job hop because that's the best way to actually get a higher salary instead of staying internally and waiting for the meager 3% wages to increase, where you could go to your competitor and get potentially a 30% boost because they really need that company. But that's within the large company ecosystem. But then you have the small businesses and the medium-sized businesses trying to compete with that, and it's got to be tough.
Well, it says that over 40% of hiring managers are listed finding skilled candidates as their major obstacle. But guess what? I'm guessing if you can meet the salary expectations, that is the top challenge, you probably have a better shot of hiring people that have the talent that you're looking for. I'm guessing. I
don't even know. Have you noticed? I've noticed some of this thing. I've seen it, whether it was on my LinkedIn or, on the TikTok HR, side of things, where people are like entry-level job, but you've got to have like 5 years experience. And this has been going on forever. But honestly, if you're going to have an entry-level job, then have it be an entry-level job. You can pay less for an entry-level job. But I'm wondering how much of that difficulty in finding people is your expectations are that you're going to get someone, let's say you're going to get a social media manager with 5, 7, 8 years of experience and you want to pay them $45,000 a year. Like,
right. Let's go to the next one. Let's go right to the cultural fit. So I am really interested to see if cultural fit is as important as this survey is letting on. It's one of the top 4, but how important is that cultural fit when you're battling meeting salary expectations and talent shortages?
I don't know. I would love to know, when they ask the survey question and they'll say how important is cultural fit, and sometimes they'll describe what that means. And I think that's really missing here. It's like a lot of context. Things that can fall into cultural fit are things of like, you have a lunch hour, but you're not allowed to leave for lunch. You better be eating at your desk. Right. So what is the culture that's a cultural thing. Do
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? That it's a little too like vague
Yeah.
to be able
You
to
know,
answer specifically.
it could be kind of like you know, this is a hit in the ground running kind of company, and we work hard, and that could be a part of cultural fit. And it's just like you're getting
Oh, yeah.
candidates who just cannot keep up. Is that a part of it, or is it just more
Well,
of like
yeah.
our political ideology don't mix?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that as much as it is things like, oh, or like you said, Leland, oh, I expect you to be available 24/7. I expect you to be on call. I expect, like, there are these cultural expectations inside of a company. And I have a feeling I think some of these things are really related, right? Like, so wait, you're going to pay me a minimum wage, but you want me to be available 24/7, maybe come in on a Saturday, and people are willing to do that, but
They got to be appropriately paid, which is the first element.
yeah, it's a balance, right? And I was actually going to say one of the things is that as a small business, one of the biggest levers that you have is having a culture that appeals to employees, or like another cultural thing might be an employee first culture, right? I was working on a campaign with iSolve. They're an HR software, and they are really targeting companies who want to put employees first. So if you put employees first, what I mean by that is, I don't even know, you make it easy for them to schedule. I'm not talking about radical things. I'm just talking about like being nice, right? Making it easy, making it
nice.
easy.
Come on.
Making it easy to do their job. Really, this is all people are asking for, right?
Even this is getting a bit radical here.
Is it? It's
nice.
so radical. It's such a radical thing to like not call your employee at 3:00 in the morning or something, and like, hey, but
you're on the fringe,
or to not, and these are all things that have happened, right? Employee puts in for a vacation, and then like after everything's all set. I mean, I've seen and heard these emails or seen these emails. After everything's all set, the boss is like, I'm sorry, you can't take your vacation because we're short staffed. Meanwhile, you've paid for everything.
Yeah. So this is actually an unintended tie-in to our next conversation. But, where does the role of loyalty fit into the corporate culture? Going not only from company to employee or employee to company, but all aspects of cultural fit and cultural loyalty or corporate loyalty. Here's an example, a very a very recent example of a company we've already talked about quite a bit today, but just ironically, this caught the attention of I don't know if it's the mass media or not, but the internet media. Whenever one of the CEOs of one of the most important industry leading companies says something pretty relevant, you got to sit up and take notice. So I believe it was on November 8th that the co-founder and CEO of Zoho, Sridhar Vembu, I'm pretty sure we're all of us, at least on this, are very familiar, or at least relatively familiar. I'm very familiar. So recently, Freshworks, it's another company in the industry that focuses on customer engagement, CX, CRM, all that kind of stuff. They went public a couple of years ago. And, we've had this conversation when any company, any startup, any tech startup in this space, whenever they take money from either, angel investors or VCs, or they go public, they lose certain amounts of control of the way that they're able to operate. And a lot of outside pressure, outside forces come and make them do things that they maybe didn't want to do or weren't expected to do. And a lot of times, and this is not just a general statement from my perspective, when they take a lot of money and they get a lot of outside influence, they have to operate significantly different, and that typically means cutting people, laying off people when the outside forces don't like them not hitting the numbers that they're expected to hit. I don't know the exact reason what's going on with Freshworks, so I can't talk about it specifically, but they just recently laid off several, I think, 100, if not 1,000 people, a certain percentage of their audience. And Sridhar Vembu, the CEO and founder of Zoho, there's a lot of kind of ties between Zoho and Freshworks. So I think he probably, has certain special insight and feelings about what's going on. So he wrote this post about what happens or what he doesn't like about companies, particularly public companies that have pretty significant amounts of money in the bank, but yet and still are operating the way those outside influencers have them operate, which is, you need to cut the fat. And cutting the fat means cutting people. And that is something I don't think Zoho has ever done at a mass level. And I think when he sees that happen to a company like Freshworks, it touches a spot, and he wrote about it. So my question is, because Freshworks is not the only company that does this. This is pretty much standard operating procedure in tech, but also just generally speaking. I mean, public companies. I mean, we can all think of the biggest public companies, and at some point in time, they've laid off people. And I think this is Sridhar just saying that's just not the way that people should be treated that have been at companies for a certain amount of time, and because of the quarter or the year, they might be gone just to make the next quarter a little bit more acceptable. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? I mean, is he saying anything in here that anybody else, a lot of other people haven't said before? I mean, and on the flip side, you can actually see, this is how things have run forever, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. But you have a company like Zoho and a leader like Sridhar who says, we're not going to do that, and we don't think it's the way to go.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a tale as old as time, and this really kind of, for me, I remember back when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and he wanted to go in and he wanted to like cut the fat, and people are like, oh, that's so cold and heartless. But then you start hearing stories about what the daily life of certain people were. And so there'd be like this manager, and they would go through their daily life because they're on TikTok or Instagram or something like that, and they're just trying to make a name for themselves. And in reality, they do maybe 5 hours of work a week. It's like their sole responsibility is like a single report. And this is one of those issues with tech companies where they expand, they get the venture capital money, they get the advice from these investors, and they say, grow, hire people, start expanding. And they don't really have the jobs in order, the work for these people. And then all of a sudden they're not turning a profit, or they're not turning as much of a profit that they want to. And then they go, well, we've hired all these people. They don't really have anything to do, so we should just let them go. And it's kind of just this irresponsible spending that all of a sudden now you're irresponsible with your employees, and it's going to be very detrimental to what's kind of going on. Now, when I've looked at Zoho, they don't have those venture capitalists. They don't have those investors talking in their ear saying, you've got to do this, you got to do that. And from what I've seen and when I've talked to people, every person that works there has themselves a full-time job. I mean, it's very well managed, very meticulous. And so if they had to actually trim fat, they would actually be losing an actual important person, some important resources, and it would be felt. Where some of these companies, it's like, well, will they be felt? I mean, if you look at Twitter, he canned 70% or something like that of the workforce, and it's still up. It's still active. I mean, people don't like the content that's on it, but it still technically works the same that it did with the resources before. And so I think that it's got to be this element where these companies have to be responsible at the beginning in hiring people that they actually need, kind of in the way that Zoho does. Hats off to Zoho for actually hiring who they need and then being responsible for those people afterwards, and not, canning them when things turn a little rough.
That's awesome. Wow, Leland, really, really well put.
Thank you. Practiced in the mirror all morning.
Okay, I was looking to see. Brent is so focused, I didn't know if he froze or not.
No, I'm just listening.
I think the only thing I can add to that, it's a spinoff on what you were talking about, Leland, is you got to ask yourself, where do these companies put their focus, right? We've been taught in undergrad, graduate school, MBAs, that the only thing that matters is increasing shareholder value. This is like your number one thing, profitability, blah, 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 right? And if you look at private companies, especially, and why they stay private, Zoho is one of them. I have another one. I'm affiliated with Question Pro, same type of philosophy. And those companies have a much more balanced view of where their priorities are. Obviously, being profitable is a high priority, but it's seen more of a byproduct, right? So let's say when I look at Zoho tends to have more of a psychological contract with their employees, right? So that seems to be like that's a priority. If they have a commitment to not laying people off, then they're going to do what you were saying, Leland, right? They're going to create an operation where they have a right level of hiring, versus if you're a company and you've just like made this, your primary goal is to increase your share price. Just like Sridhar was saying, like if you're going to buy back $400 million worth of stock, that's artificially inflating the value of that stock, versus Zoho that's actually creating value with people like doing work and creating product, right? So it just depends on where your focus is. There used to be a time where laying off people was not cool. It was not part of the social contract, the psychological contract between an employee and an employer. Like I'm from Pittsburgh and the steel mills. That contract was, you come into this mill at 16, 17 years old and you do your shifts and you show up for work. You're probably going to be a union member. You do that work and you come in when we call you, like you dedicate your life to the mill and we will take care of you. We will pay you. You can send your kids to college. You can take your vacation. They get time and a half, double time, triple time. There was a time where that was the contract and people worked for 40 years that way. And then one day, like when I started working, that suddenly was like, yeah, we don't need to do that. Well, if you tell me that I don't matter, if I'm here to take care of you, but you're not going to take care of me, that's when you're going to see that list, Brent. That's going to create that list that we just talked about, whether it's a cultural fit, whether I'm getting paid enough. Those are all indicators of a broken psychological contract between an employer and an employee.
Yeah. And you could look at what happened in the kind of the pandemic and see there was this almost sort of like a 1849 feel, the gold rush. People were were hiring people like crazy because they had to switch from analog to digital. And they saw this huge opportunity. And like some companies that had like 30,000, 40,000 employees, they hired another 30 or 40,000 because they saw this opportunity. But it was a short-term opportunity. They were trying to kind of ride the wave. And you could see that when this wave is over, there's going to be a crash because they didn't really need, they knew they couldn't sustain or a long-term sustentation of an additional twice of what the employees that they had before. So you saw this huge, and you're seeing it now. I mean, you're still seeing the ramification or the impact of companies that ramped up for the pandemic, and they've been ramping down, ever since to a certain extent. And those employees didn't do anything wrong. They absolutely did nothing wrong. But it's like Leland said, it was the managers, it was the C-level folks who, because of the way, kind of the status quo way of operating, it's okay to do that. Apparently it's okay to do. And I think what Tritter is saying, it's not okay for them. It's not okay for Zoho. They didn't do any mass layoffs in the hardest part of the pandemic when everything was shutting down. They didn't lay anybody off.
They planned for that, right? I mean, you can tell, the couple companies that I know, like Question Pro and Zoho, where I can, we have the privilege of being, you more than myself for sure, have the privilege of being a little bit behind the curtain. But it's obvious if you are engaging with their employees, if you're engaging with that brand, whether you just go to Zoholics, whether you just like go to some of these events or you're engaging with their folks, one of the things that you can absolutely see, feel, and touch is that the priorities of that number one priority of Zoho is to be in business for the long term. Like once you've made that choice, you're going to make some other choices in order to support that. Zoho does not throw their money around. I see that they're very generous. They're very kind. They're not bootstrappy, but they are what I would call very value conscious, which is why I like them so much.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean, I can't.
You see what I'm saying? They're going to throw. They know that if my number one goal is to be in business for the long haul, leave a legacy, make a difference in the world, do amazing things, right? That means I need people to do that. Well, if I need people to do that, then whatever money I make, I'm gonna squirrel away some. I'm gonna be wise about how I deal with my money. Whereas some corporations, and Brent, you tell me, because you know so many of these tech companies, I just as an outsider have the impression that some of them just like throw money around.
Well, they throw money around in certain periods, in certain times, because like I said, the pandemic, everybody was trying to ramp up to take advantage of this once in a generation, more multi-generational occurrence, which is everything shuts down, so everything has to switch from the usual way of doing things, which is analog, to digital. So the tech companies were like, "Oh my God, this is like I said, this is like the gold mine. We can ramp. We get enough people in. We get ramp. We can sell everything, all this digital stuff we have. But it's not like that is going to be a steady, sustainable ramp. It's just a short-term thing that happened. But what happens when you do everything for the short-term bump? After that bump is over, guess what? People get bumped, and that's what happens when you are a company that takes outside money. Either you go IPO, and you have shareholders and activists, board members, and people who are trying to make you do certain things, or if you go to the angel investing route. And see, that's the one thing. I don't know much about Question Pro, but I know Zoho has never taken any outside money, so they don't feel those outside influence.
Exactly. I think that's such a big deal.
Yeah, and they can do things on their time as opposed to on their shareholders' time or their angel investors' time. And that does make a huge difference. I'll never forget Schroeder said once to me, this is years ago. He gets one of his best night's sleep during the year. He gets it during quarter close. And that's a huge statement because most CEOs, that's like they aren't getting any sleep for that because they know they got to hit numbers and report those numbers, and and then they have all sorts of shareholders and activist investors who are going to be just looking at you for the number. And the companies like what you're saying with Question Pro, and I know with Zoho, of course they're very keyed in on numbers, but they're not driven by just numbers. They are driven by doing things the way that they feel comfortable with doing it. Yeah. And they don't care if they are not the first or the biggest, to do or say something, because they don't have to be. And I think one of the other aspects of this is their customers are very fine with the way things are going, and because their customers are happy and their employers are happy, they're able to do the things without having to worry about all the other stuff going on. So I think that's really important. And I don't know. I just honestly don't think anything is going to change for both sides here. I don't think the way that Silicon Valley and the tech world works, they're going to continue to lay off people. And I actually think it's going to get worse with the new administration because, it's very corporate focused. Let's put it like that. So we're going to see a lot more layoffs. But I was going to say on the Zoho side, that has zero impact on them whatsoever. They're going to continue doing what they're doing because they don't have that outside stuff going on.
Do you think with so many firings and such a kind of toxic corporate culture that it might actually end up in the resultings of unions and these employees kind of building a Silicon Valley union to kind of rally together and be like, we're not going to, you're not going to treat us like this, treat us with a little bit more respect? Or is it just going to be so.
I don't think this administration is very pro-union of any kind whatsoever. So I don't see that happening. And I do see less regulation, less unions, and I think more of the very small group of people having much more control over the way things operate. Now, I would love to be wrong about that. I think we're just you ain't seen nothing yet, unfortunately. So, wow.
Thanks, Grant. That was awesome.
But it's jewels like Zoho that make you really appreciate companies that have real that value their employees, real value with their employees. And I remember, I thought I'll just kind of end with this. I've been working with Zoho for years. And I thought I knew a lot about the company. Done things and, seen things. But when I went to India with the kind of the trip they put together for the analysts, that gave me just a whole new appreciation for how they treat their employees. And I think the way that the employees value being valued. And it's just like, until you see it like that and what they do. I know there's a lot of talk. There was some chatter about, well, you can do that because you don't, pay the way that they pay at some other companies. Is that real, or is that you look at payment as one thing, and then I think these folks look at value more than just getting paid, and I think that's the biggest difference in the way that Zoho operates and treats their folks versus kind of the traditional way that you see going on in Silicon Valley. That's just my opinion. Wow, interesting stuff. I wish we had our full group here.
I know.
But that would have been good.
Yeah, it would have been good. But hey, I really, we just tackle what comes, our way, right? Every week. We don't know what we're going to be talking about. And I think that's really cool that we're able to get a little heads up from Leland and Joshua, but sometimes, like Leland that just saw that and put that there. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen it, but then I looked for it. I was like, wow, a lot of discussion here, a lot of back and forth, which means it's something that we probably should be talking about too. Anyway, any parting thoughts? Let's start with Leland.
Have a good weekend. That's all I got.
Well, that's a good one.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy.
All right,
relax.
Ivana, can you top that? I mean, even
You started this mic drop thing, so I'm just gonna see if I can deliver. I think what I got out of today is, as for business owners, so this is your small business owner tip, right? Marketing / success tip. The one question: what drives you? And get real about what's really, really driving you. If you're not sure, answer these questions. Who are you being in the world? What are you committed to? And what can people count on you for? Once you've answered those, now you got to look at creating structures that will support those. So all that is a summary of what we were talking about today, in terms of data, in terms of things that like successful companies do, because it's really clear about, if you listen to our conversation, who's driven by what and what type of impact that has. Always remember, doing the right thing and making money are not mutually exclusive. Back to you, Brent.
I'll end with, I'm just going to pop this up, although I know it's very hard to read. I think if you just listen to the last part of our discussion around what is kind of kicked off by Sridhar Vibro Zoho, but it was all about valuing and culture fits and all that kind of stuff, and how that plays a role. I think it plays a significant role in hiring challenges. If you set up the kind of culture that you are comfortable with, that employees, future or current, that they feel valued in, you're not going to have as many hiring challenges as some of these other things, because the one thing you don't have to worry about is, what companies that do these mass layoffs do is employees always thinking, I got to keep my eyes open for, what's going on, because I want to get out before they put me out. That's a kind of a cutthroat environment to have to kind of exist in. But on the flip side, if you have a culture where employees feel valued and don't have to worry about getting mass layoffs, I think that's probably going to attract a pretty significant amount of people. So I think you kind of have to look at both of those conversations we just had, the data around hiring challenges and the conversation that was kind of kicked off by Sridhar. Look at them both. They're not disconnected at all. I think they're very interrelated.
Employees are your single greatest marketing investment. Think about that.
Now that's a mic drop.
Is that the mic drop?
That's the mic drop right there. No, we're gonna keep that mic dropped, and we will see you next Friday for a small biz breakdown. Have a great weekend.